Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We're on episode 153, and it's dark out right now, and you know what I noticed is the days are getting darker and darker.
Yeah.
We're having less sunlight. I mean, right now would be expected because we're at 4 in the morning, but
Right.
still, I'm not a big fan of when it continues to get darker because, like we always say, that's the sign that
Winter is coming.
our friend is coming, unfortunately.
Daylight savings time's right around the corner, correct? I
Believe.
don't know where the day it is.
I think that I heard that there was potential to do away with it.
Yeah,
there was speculation that they were going to do that because wasn't it originally done for farmers, I believe?
It was.
And I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I'm pretty sure that I heard conversations happening at a higher level, like from a government level, where they're talking about potentially disbanding that and be doing away with it. But then I also, I believe that Arizona does not follow daylight savings time. I believe that's the only state that doesn't. I don't know if it's the entirety of Arizona or parts of Arizona. I don't know, but
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I say every year I'm going to know. I'm going to look it up and see what day it is.
Yeah.
So I can be prepared for it. But I kind of like the surprise of, hey, you get an extra hour of sleep.
Yeah.
Except for the day, the time, spring forward where when you lose an hour, that sucks. But fall back, I like that. I like that surprise of, hey, you get an extra hour. And you know what? Ironically enough, it almost always falls on the time when I am behind on sleep.
Yeah.
And I get rewarded with an extra hour. So.
It's like right at the perfect time. It's needed. I found that I'm already, like, my biological clock is already starting to get thrown off a little bit, even though we haven't had the time shift yet. Just from the day getting darker sooner. Mm-hmm. Like, I've noticed that it's actually helped me to be truthful because, like, the circadian rhythm is shifted a little bit earlier with, like, the darkness setting in. And it's probably psychological as well, too, not just physiological, but, like, when it's dark out, I automatically assume, like, okay, it's time to start to settle down and get ready for bed. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed several times, it'll happen multiple times a week, where I'll look at the clock expecting it to be a certain time, like, okay, I'm going to go to bed now, and then, or get ready for bed or whatever. And I realize that, like, I'm basically 2 hours or an hour and a half above schedule.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I noticed about 2 weeks ago, my daughter starting to get tired around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. Now, she is typically wired for sound until the brink of 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and that's when she finally starts to wind down. But I didn't think about it until really like last night. I was like, it's starting to get darker already.
Yeah.
And she was like, hit that cusp where she flipped the switch and she started to slow down and calm down. Mm. And I think she associates bedtime with dark, which makes sense because we're supposed to.
Yep.
But I've never seen the circadian rhythm like in action. Mm. Like on somebody else.
Yeah.
But with her, I can watch it because she has no idea. Mm-hmm. She don't know how to read, tell time.
Well, that's like biology at its finest. Right. When you talk about blue light, which is the light from, or part of the light spectrum from all of our electronics, blunting and mitigating melatonin production in the body. So that essentially signals to the brain and the rest of the body that it's time to go to sleep and start to downregulate the nervous system and enter that like parasympathetic state. Well, in the presence of blue light, that doesn't happen. So that's why one of the biggest sleep strategies that a lot of people, myself included, promote is limit electronic use prior to bed. Whether it's like you create a certain threshold, like an hour before bed or 2 hours before bed or whatever. And then I know that that's not a realistic expectation for a lot of people. So, and then one of the things you can do to kind of counteract that is like blue light blocking sunglasses or something, wear those in the evening, just because, again, it's biology.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's probably neat to see that firsthand from someone that's not you.
It is. It was fun. It's fun to watch because like I didn't even recognize it at first. Like I was telling my wife, like she's starting to get tired, and it's like 6 o'clock, and it slowly started to make sense. Like, oh, the seasons are changing. It's getting darker earlier. She's been up earlier because the sun woke her up.
Yeah.
You know, so. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And when you look at babies, not just from sleep, but like almost like literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. At least if you know, it's kind of one of those things where if you know what you're looking for, or you know what you're talking about in regards to like sports performance and just how the body was designed and created to perform.
Yeah.
It's amazing how perfect babies are.
Absolutely.
Like we've talked about it before with like the biomechanics.
Yeah.
Like how a baby can squat down into a full squat perfectly with like neutral feet, great hip abduction, no pain, no joint mobility restrictions, just nothing.
Yeah.
And then you look at trying to get a human to do a foundational movement pattern like that, and it's completely screwed up.
Right.
And it's so cool to see how perfect babies can do things, and then how we screw ourselves up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because it's almost like, for example, I was talking to somebody about this at the gym recently, where he was talking about schedule and having a difficult time coming to the gym for exercise. And he likes going to the gym, which is why he does it. And I'm going to take strength training or sports specific items out of the equation, because obviously if you want to get as big as possible and as strong as possible, you need to resistance train. So the gym would afford you the best opportunity to do that. So we're going to disregard that. So let's talk just about like the paradigm of exercise. So only exercise, you don't need a gym.
Right.
Like humans get this ideology that like I have to go to the gym for exercise. But if you look at other parts of the world that aren't as modernized as like Western culture, they don't have any overweight people. Everybody's in super good shape and very healthy from an athleticism or body movement standpoint, because that's all they do.
Right.
So there's
Literally
not a lot of like
move.
sedentary lifestyles. So they're moving, they're jumping, they're running, they're crawling, they're skipping, they're falling, they're climbing, all that stuff. So you really shouldn't need the gym to elicit the response of exercise and health.
I agree. I agree. You know, I think we've talked about it numerous times where, you know, in America especially,
Yeah.
in what Western society,
Uh-huh.
where automobiles are prevalent,
Yep.
food is readily available,
Yep.
out of shape, overweight, sedentary lives is the norm. It's not abnormal to see somebody who looks like me, who's overweight, who's sits around all the time, sits behind a desk, because why would it be out of the norm to see?
And some of that's in your control, but a lot of it is difficult to override. And I'm not talking about being overweight, although that is true too.
Yeah, but the other stuff.
Just that, like the car thing, for example. Like what other, because I think that it's kind of compounded by us being a busy society too.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So you think, okay, let's say I'm trying to get away from these modernized crutches, so to speak. I don't want to like drive everywhere, so I'm sitting for long periods of time. Well, the only other option you have is to rock or to walk or like ride your bike or rollerblade or do something else like physically active. But like logistically, would it be possible for you to go to your job and then still do your other duties and do that?
You would legitimately have to buy a house next to or within distance, striking distance of your job.
Yeah.
And
which for almost all of us, I would say, is not feasible.
It's exactly. And the problem is in our society, success is heavily paired with transportation.
Yes.
So you would basically be removing success from your equation if you decide I'm not gonna drive anymore. I mean, I'm not gonna use modern transportation anymore.
Yeah.
Because if you did that, you would be inevitably in better shape, because all of your means of conveyance would be your feet.
Yeah.
So you would be moving a lot more, but you wouldn't be able to be as successful. I mean, I guess you could if you were an online person, but then how much time are you going to be sitting behind a desk? You know, how much transportation do you really need if you're working solely online?
Yeah.
So we have got ourselves into a catch-22 in this country, and that's why like the fitness influencers, people like you who push going to the gym or getting outside and moving or controlling what you eat they do have so much success, because that's the ticket.
People need that.
You have to have it. It's not even it's a dire need.
Yeah, if you tried to sell the gym in a third world country, aside from financially, it would be an impossibility. But like, why would they need that?
Right, they don't.
Why would I have to go walk on a treadmill when all I do all day is walk?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't, and then back to babies, like they're like the closest thing to the primal living in this country and in Western society that we'll ever get.
Yep.
Because like everything is foundational.
Why it was even, I've talked about this before. I mentioned it on another episode of our podcast where I saw this, like, I don't want to call it a study, maybe like a case study, I guess, where they took park benches and they put them in a third world, unmodernized, underdeveloped, like African country. So a lot of like tribal people live there, and they put all these park bench or picnic tables where these tribes people were, and explained to them that this was like a place to eat, like a family gathering. This is where you eat. So what they did was, instead of sitting on the bench and putting the food on the table like a normal, I guess, quote, normal person would, they put the food on the table, but instead of sitting on the benches on either side, they stood on them and squatted down. So they were in a full squat position while eating. And we've talked about this before too. Like when you talk about an anatomical perspective, bodies were designed to be in the full squat position for lengthy periods of time.
Yeah.
To go to the bathroom, to work with our hands,
Exactly.
to do almost everything.
It's weird that in our conception of thinking, being in a full squat position is you're loaded. You're loading your muscles for,
Oh, yeah.
It's like time under tension.
Yep.
But in a third world country or in our ancestral ways, that's normal.
That's rest.
That's rest.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm gonna sit down into a squat position, so I'm gonna rest. Which is, it's funny because like I've actually had that. That's like a type of cueing that I use for people. Not that we very often do a ton of isometrics. Usually I'm doing isometrics against load, where we're trying to move something that is like stationary.
Yeah.
But let's say, for example, that I am doing like an air squat or a what do they call them? Like essentially where you squat and just hold it. I don't even know the term for it. Obviously don't do it enough. But just like a squat hold, basically, that I will tell people when they do that to not go into a full squat position, to try to keep like knee flexion at 90. So that way you're actually getting load of body weight onto the target muscles.
Right.
Like your muscles are actually more active than when you squat all the way down and sit on your heels, because then joints take load and you're not really getting much muscle activation there.
Right.
Which it's funny that you say that, because that's actually a cueing point. But yeah, it was meant to be, the full squat was designed to be a restful position, not something that's like torturous.
Yeah, we're almost like, our whole like spinal health or our everything is not right because of I don't know if it's because we sit instead of squat.
Partially, yeah.
Because we're loading our spine and our hips and our pelvis and stuff. Like, I don't know if that's why exactly. I don't know how do you fix it? Like, how do you fix it all? Because there's so many things that we do wrong in our society.
Well, let me tell you, one thing that I've been doing lately is completely revamping my shoulder training.
Okay.
I don't, knock on wood, don't have any shoulder issues in particular, but I'm like everybody else, that occasionally I'll get some shoulder pain, or I'll go through periods of time at the gym where certain pressing movements bother my shoulders. Get tissue work done on it, get some chiropractic care, and usually that solves it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have any like chronic shoulder issues like some people. But I've still revamped my shoulder training to where it looks very, very atypical of what like a normal person would be. So for example, when went to the gym yesterday and put our crew through a shoulder training session, and I will tell you what my workout was like. So the first thing we did was we did some light dumbbells, and we did like a multiple way shoulder raise. So not like your traditional 6 shoulder weight raise, or 6-way shoulder raise, which is, for those of you that don't know it, you would have to look it up because it's kind of complicated, but it's basically like a lateral raise, and then you abduct the arms back to the front, the frontal plane, and then lift them up overhead, and then go in reverse. So back in front of you, out to the side, and down, and you do that repetitively. So out to the side is 1, out in front is 2, up overhead is 3, back in front is 4, out to the side again is 5, and down is 6. So 6-way, hence the name 6-way shoulder. What we did was I kind of came up with a new one where the arms were flexed at 90. We abduct out to the side, externally rotate back, externally rotate down, and then come back with, elbows to the body. So then we adduct in. And it was more just for like, I don't want to say mobility purposes because I wasn't taking the joint through a really good range of motion, but like internal and external rotation with load to like strengthen the rotator cuff. So we did a lot of reps with that kind of as a warm up. Next thing we did was what's called a band dislocator. So we take a band and you hold the band out in front of you with your arms straight out from your chest, almost like you're a locked out bench press position, but you're standing holding the ends of the band. And then what you do is you will bring your band or the hands overhead without trying to pull the band and just like basically flip the band onto your low back, if that makes sense. Again, it's very hard for me to describe this. And then you come back and you go back and forth. And what that does is it puts the shoulder through like full external rotation and full internal rotation. And we did a couple sets of 10 reps with that. Then after that, we did arm circles, just like your traditional arm circles, but we did them pretty aggressively, like almost like an athlete would, like pre-game, especially a throwing athlete like a baseball player or a quarterback, to try to loosen the shoulder joint and mobilize it. We did that in both directions. I don't think we did them yesterday, but we do them every shoulder day, every back day. Usually most upper body days is we do just like static hangs where we hang from a bar to help like shoulder protraction, mobilize the joint. I've been really getting into single arm hangs where I hang for as long as I can from one arm for time. And then after that, we did some barbell pressing. Now, I'm doing like a million exercises, so this sounds like super high volume. Right. But it's not. It's not high volume. It's just it is, but it's not like taxing to the nervous system.
Right.
Because everything I named so far is like light mobilization, high rep, just trying to put blood flow into the tissue and into the joint and move it as much as possible. So then after that, how many exercises deep, we finally start to apply like appropriate strength training load. And we did some overhead barbell pressing, went real heavy on those. And then after that, I believe we finished with something metabolic, like maybe like face pulls or something. I can't really recall. But regardless, that was it.
Yeah.
So we did one really, really heavy, or I think we did dumbbell pressing, but we kept it in a higher rep range, like sets of 15 or whatever. So in the entirety of that shoulder workout, we really did only one heavy overhead pressing movement.
Yeah, everything else was...
And the rest of it was aimed at how can I make my shoulder function better.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think that I've done with my athletes, and it would be beneficial for me to do it too, is looking at your training as joint specific, not muscle specific. So think about if you did like a day where I'm going to do like glenohumeral joint day. Like basically like shoulder joint day where I'm going to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the next day it's going to be hip dominant. So you could do like hip hinging movements. You could do like abduction movements, like glute training. Like I'm just going to do stuff for the hips. And then like I could have a knee dominant day where it's still lower body specific, obviously, but I'm working into like deep ranges of flexion, like pre-fatiguing the quads, like doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's my point in bringing that up is like, I don't do traditional lifting all the time, like your traditional strength training exercises. We look at like performance indicators as being as like, how can I use my joints better? So like last week when you talked about your 3 biggest health tips, and one of the things that I mentioned was challenge movement. So like, don't challenge yourself through movement solely, like just like how much can I lift, how far can I run, but challenge the quality of your movement. Like, how long can I hold this? How deep can I squat? How far can I spread my legs apart? How high can I get a back bend? Like, things like that would go a really, really long way in performance. And then starting to slowly get out of civilized culture in terms of movement patterns and stuff, or lack thereof, I suppose. So this kind of like, sorry to go on that tangent there,
but I appreciate it.
This kind of like leads me or segues into a question that I have for you. In terms of like challenging Western culture would be a way that we could put it, but it's kind of going to be a lengthier discussion.
Yeah.
So commercial break time, I believe.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's go to a quick commercial break, and then I'll postulate that question to Justin when we come back.
As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well.
And we are back from our commercial break. All right, Justin, prior to the break, I said that I wanted to bring up a question. I use the word postulate because, and you thought that was a pretty cool word. So essentially we talked about what that means is just, that's something that is like a theory or something that is kind of like regarded as true, but you can't have irrefutable proof of it, but it's accepted as true. So something that I've been ruminating on as of late. So it's very coincidental that this podcast kind of worked its way in the conversation. And again, I have several things, like several postulates, I guess, that I know are true, or that I assume are true, of ways that we can help eradicate Western downfall.
Yes.
In terms of movement, motor patterns specifically. So my first question that I'm going to say would be, all right, man, what are the downfalls that we see, or what are causing the downfalls that we see in lack of human functionality? So the one that you brought up was transportation. Mm-hmm. Like you're driving for long periods of time. We can just put that under the big umbrella of sitting.
Yep.
So we are constantly sitting, all of us. You remember, I haven't followed through on this, unfortunately, as much as I should, but I used to have that rule at the gym where it was no sitting at the gym.
Yeah.
Not because of like a hardcore, we got to stand and we can't show that you're tired or anything like that. But I didn't want to sit down because I wanted to make sure I was in a full squat or kind of in some type of yoga pose, sitting on my knees in the front of my tibs.
Mm-hmm. We would squat and stand on the bench.
Yeah, something like that, where you're just trying to kind of create more motor pattern use. So anyway, sitting.
Yeah.
That's one. What are other ways, let's just brainstorm quickly before we really get into it. What are other ways that we feel that our culture is impacting our ability to move?
Our ability to move.
One thing that I also thought about is stairs.
Yeah.
I know elevators. It sounds silly, and I know elevators, escalators, anything that brings us up. And I know that someone would say, well, stairs are beneficial for exercise. And truthfully, now they are.
Yeah.
But they're taking away from an even better form of exercise, which would have been climbing.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I need to get someplace high, I climb up there.
Right.
Now, not that I'm suggesting that we can get away or should do away with stairs or escalators.
We could do away with some of the use of elevators in a 2-story building.
Yeah. You could.
Another one would be, and then I may be off base here, but running. Especially as adults, as people transition through their childhood into their early teenage years and then into their early adulthood, they slowly transition out of running. When little kids are kids, mm-hmm. That's all they do is they run and scream and play.
Yeah, you're right. But so then just trying to think freely here, where do we point the finger at in terms of culturally speaking, in our society, what causes us to not run? Is it some of its location from a predatory aspect? Because even if there was no infrastructure in buildings or highways or perceived safety, mm-hmm. We don't really have many predators here that could get to us. I mean, wolves, bears, I suppose, but not if we're in
not in
Africa with lions and stuff that could chase you. So where do we point the finger as not needing to run? Is that another transportation thing? I'm not in a hurry to get anywhere because I can drive there.
I think so. I mean, mm-hmm. that, and then, like you said, it's a safety concern.
Also, I could point the finger to, and just think, could point it at grocery stores because they provide food, so I don't have to go chase it and try to hunt it.
I don't have to hunt anymore.
Yeah, guns.
Yeah.
Even those people that do hunt, you don't have to like chase a deer with a spear.
Yeah, or smash its head with a rock.
Yeah.
I'm just be talking primal.
Yeah.
Running, I guess, would be one, but that would be a far stretch, I guess, a little bit farther stretch than the sitting thing.
Yep. I think that predictability of day requires us to not we'd probably go through the same freaking steps.
Yeah.
All the time. So the fact that there's hyperstructure, you know, and I know here's a great example. Well, we'll get into this in a second because I'm gonna be answering my own question. So let me get to the question first before I answer it. So my question is, we see all these things that are suboptimal in terms of movement.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do we get rid of them then? Because obviously you're not going to get rid of cars. You're not going to get rid of stairs. You're not going to get rid of all the things we mentioned, nor should you. Those are necessities at this point with the way that our lives are. But the question that I want to ask, the question that I want to propose is how do you start to do damage control for those things? Something little we talked about, at the gym, is never sitting down.
Yeah.
But let's use strength training as a tool to help mitigate that. If you do regular strength training, especially lower body training, train your body to go into a loaded squat position.
Yeah.
Teach yourself how to squat.
Yep.
That could be largely beneficial for your joints. So that something little like that could be step one.
Yeah, because then you remove the comfort of sitting and replace it with the comfort of squatting.
Yeah.
You know, because your body is anatomically back to feeling good in a squat.
Now that comfort's going to take a long time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're not going to go from comfort to comfort instantly. You're going to go from comfort, a lot of discomfort for most people, and then eventually will work your way back to comfortability.
Right.
But it takes a minute. So when I paused and said that I was going to interrupt myself and answer my own question before I even asked the question, one thing that I do is, and I did this just the other day, a local elementary school recently received a grant or government funding for a wellness program, an after-school wellness program. It is multifactorial. So they do I believe they have technology integration, and they feed the kids and they do this. Well, the gym that I work at, Ram Fitness, they brought the owner and I out there to do youth classes with the kids. So it's after school, and we get them in in chunks. So it's half-hour intervals. So we get one group for a half hour, another group for a half hour, another group for a half hour. It's all third and fourth graders. And they are, I think there's 10 or so of them at a time, 10 to 11, 12, somewhere in that range. And what we do is we put them they have, like I said, they have different types of instructors for different things. Well, clearly ours is exercise based.
Right.
So what we do is we disguise working out as playing games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we play fun games with them, challenge their movement, basically.
Right.
Well, one of the things that I love to do for warm-ups, and I don't know if I've mentioned this ever on the podcast before, but it's awesome. I got this from Dr. Perry Nicholson, who's a widely renowned physical therapist. And I have done these with you in the past.
I bet you know what it is.
These are called get-up flows,
Yes.
is what I term them. I don't know if Dr. Nicholson has a phrase for them or a name for them. I just always call them get-up flows because you're flowing and getting up from different positions. So this backtrack, one of the problems that we have is going through the same steps all the time.
Right.
And part of that is just doing things the same way. So Adam Blumen, a deep tissue massage therapist out of Pittsburgh, who's a good friend of yours and mine, he said to me one time that the worst person he's ever worked on from a manual therapy perspective was a garbage man. Because a garbage man was jumping in and out of a truck and stepping into the truck the same way. And he said that that's kind of the same thing with anybody that has a repetitive movement pattern because of their job, where they do this the same way over and over and over for hundreds of thousands of times.
That makes total sense.
Because there's certain breakdown in joints and lack of mobility in others because they're not challenged at all. Well, we do the same thing. If I drop something on the floor, you're going to bend down and pick it up the same way you always would.
Right.
Or if you go to sit down in a seat, you're going to post one arm behind you Like maybe it's your strong arm, like your right arm. You're going to sit down the same way. You're going to stand up the same way. You're going to lay down the same way. So we get into these patterns of doing things so repetitively with not even knowing it. So these get up flows, what you do is you lay on your back first, like completely still, and you stand up. Doesn't matter how you get up.
Yep.
And then what you do is you go back down to the ground and lay on your stomach, and then you stand up. And then you lay back down on your side and stand up. And then you lay back down on the other side and stand up. You don't rush these. You just do these like casually. Now, more often than not, if not all the time, when you stand up from those different positions, it's probably the same way you have stood up from those positions a million times.
Forever. Yeah.
So if you were ever lying on your back on the floor, you would have gotten up the same way that you probably just did. You use the same arm, drive off the same foot, cross the same hip over, roll the same way, whatever. There's no limitation to how you're allowed to perform this drill. So then what we do is we lay on our back. And I did this with the kids the other day, which is, great segue. So what we do then is we remove a body part, so to speak. So with them, the first thing we did was we took our right hand and we glued it to the top of our head. So now I'm laying on my back and my right hand is glued to the top of my head. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stand up and then I'm going to sit back down or lie back down onto my stomach. And then I'm going to get back up and then I'm going to go back down to my side. And then I'm going to get back up and I'm going to go back down to my other side, get back up, and then I'm going to go back to my back. Then after right hand to top of the head, we took the left hand to the hip. So left hand, left hip. Now we can't take that left hand off that hip. We can get up any way we want, but we can't use our left hand because it's glued to our hip, right? So I can't push off that arm. You would be amazed at how difficult it is. Because then you have to go into different like hip angles and hip mobility things because you have to drive off of your hips. You have to push off using your legs versus your hands. And you realize how often you do the same patterns because one of these patterns may be easy. Like let's say you always get up using your left hand. Mm-hmm. Put your right hand on your head. It's not that big of an issue. Right. Coming down it would be because you can't post with both hands. So you got to kind of like gingerly use your knees, kind of use your elbow to, because with these, we don't want to fall down. It was actually really good because we did it on a hard concrete, like the tile gym floor. So the kids couldn't fall down, which was awesome because normally kids would just flop down, which negates the purpose of the exercise. Right. So then like the next one we did was did both hands on both knees. So right hand, right knee, left hand, left knee. So you couldn't use your hands at all to get back. And like you're on your chest and your knees when you're on your stomach because you can't straighten your legs out. Because then your hands would come off your knees. It was just a really, really fun activity that we did that, number one, gets your whole body engaged because you have a lot of core control, a lot of hip mobility, but it challenges patterns.
It's definitely an exercise that I enjoy a lot because it is very challenging. And it's a basic thing. It's a basic movement.
Yeah, like exercise. You said, primal or primitive.
Yeah, it's very primitive.
Yeah.
It's, you were out hunting and you got wounded.
Uh-huh.
Now you have to overcome a thing because you have to. If you have to be able to get up off the ground.
It is truly amazing. I say this all the time. It is absolutely unbelievable. For someone who works in sports performance and my life revolves around this, it is unreal what the human body is capable of in regards to movement. Mm-hmm. If we train it the way that it was supposed to be. I don't even want to say trained because it wasn't really, it was just innate.
The way we were the way it was designed.
Yeah, the way that we were designed to move is unbelievable.
Yeah.
If people could see how we can climb, how we can jump, how we can crawl, skip, maneuver around things, lift heavy things, like it's truly amazing what the bodies are capable of.
It is.
If we actually challenged it. But we don't. And a lot of that's just that you can't blame people. They just don't know any better because they've always grown up like this.
You always do what you always did. You always get what you always got.
Yeah. I see this guy, and I have to think of his name. And I will either link it in a post or I will bring it up next week. There is this guy that I found on Instagram. And he is like, gosh, I don't even know what to call him. A primitive exerciser. That's the only word I can think of. Like, to the best of what I've seen, is he doesn't do any strength training. He literally goes in the woods and like climbs around. Like he like trains like an ape. Yeah. Like he climbs things and jumps from tree to tree and like swings using one hand and falls. And actually, I have my phone in front of me, so I'm going to delay this for a minute. I'm going to actually look it up because I think that I could find him relatively quick because I think I have some of his items saved on Instagram, so I could just go to my save posts and find him, so I can give people here he is. That was quick. Leo Urban. So Leo Urban is his name, and I know that nobody can see this, but I'm showing Justin a video of him just, first he's sprinting through the woods, now he's swinging and backflipping off tree branches, jumping from tree to tree. Like, he literally looks like an animal when he's doing this thing. Like, he looks like an ape, and he's super high off the ground in some of these videos. But basically what he does is he just challenges movement. And actually the post, the caption of the post says humanzy, like chimpanzee, but he has a little monkey or gorilla emoji there.
I like it.
So Leo.Urban, Leo.Urban, Leo.Urban. Go check him out. He's unbelievable. Just recently stumbled upon him not too long ago. So I don't really know the ins and outs of his training philosophy or anything like that. I just see a dude that like was running through the woods and it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm like, oh, I got to check that out.
Yeah, it's, and it's primal. That's something that, I think that's the reason why, like, the Liver King has always stood out to me, because it talks about primal. I don't want to get into the ins and outs of is he or is he not, what this or that, but just the idea, the concept of going back to a more primal living, primal lifestyle.
Yes. Liver King's very polarizing.
Yes.
Because people like debate if he's taking anabolic steroids or not, but I think that people are missing the forest from the trees. Like, exactly. Look at the message that he's promoting. He's promoting a very, very healthy lifestyle. He's promoting exercise. He's promoting immunity and toughness. And he's promoting loving your family. Like, he's like those 9 ancestral tenets, as he calls them, or those pillars of how do you live your life. One of them is bond. And he talks about like bonding with your inner circle tribe, as he calls it, like being closer to your family. So like his messages are awesome. But people get so caught up in, does this guy take steroids or does this guy not? It's like, listen, it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, the forest from the trees. Yeah,
and I get that there's a little bit of it that like it could be, in some people's opinion, disingenuous because like, he's promoting an all natural, healthy lifestyle, but then he's taking anabolics. Like, I get what people are saying, but I just don't think that needs to be an obsession point.
Right, because of the message. Like you said, the underlying message.
Yes.
Is amazing. And he's not wrong. Not to say that every single person would look like he does by doing those things exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But every single person that did those things would be better off.
Yes, significantly.
And it's science.
Yeah.
It's what we're designed to do.
I think that would be a good place to end it. Let's do...
Eat liver? Oh.
Yeah, we could do eat liver. I will actually be doing that. And a matter of fact, I'm glad that you said that because I have to go pick up some more because I'm out currently. All I have is chicken hearts left in terms of organ meat, so I got to go. And the place that I get them from, the farm, is only open on Saturdays. Yep. So I'm very thankful you said that. But let's give actionable steps. How about just find ways to challenge movement this week? Find a way to challenge your movement. Find a way to like get into a split or try to start to get into a split. Try to see how, like, if you can do a pistol squat down on one leg. Just see what your body's capable of. Start small. Challenge like one particular thing even.
Yeah.
Like spend a couple months just trying to get your squat position better. Even without weight, just sitting at home watching TV.
Yeah.
Do that for a couple months. I know it's going to be hard to continue motivation. Some people may listen to this and be like, I'm going to do this for sure. Work on their squat for a day or two and then slowly gets worked out again.
Yeah.
No ironic pun intended. But try to go back and keep it. Try to do something. Do one little thing and then build on it. That's where we'll start with our actionable steps.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Trees podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 153. As always, we appreciate your listenership, and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week. Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge.